Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Gerald Lami podcast. I will be bringing you content with some of the best sport personalities around the world and sharing their journey with listeners and inspiring the next generation. Without further ado, I would like to introduce my special guest for today, Aaron Mclean. Welcome, Aaron. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
No, thank you for having me.
Anytime. So, if we can just take it back to your childhood, where it all started, and just how the love of football began.
For me, as a youngster, obviously, all the people that live near me were all into football. So, on a day-to-day, we just go out and kind of just play in the streets. But I never really, until I got to about 9, 10, I never really wanted to play for a football club. I don't know what it was, but I never wanted to play for a club. And my best friend at the time was just like, nah, look, come and join my team. So I went over there, and then just from that day, that's all I ever wanted to do. All I ever wanted to do.
Where did you grow up?
So I was born in Hammersmith, but I grew up in East London.
Okay, which part?
So I lived in Bethnal Green for quite a while, and then I moved down to Dagenham.
Okay, so for people that don't know, obviously I'm aware I'm from East London myself as well, but for people that don't know, paint a picture of what Bethnal Green was at that time and Dagenham.
A lot of flats and masonettes. Yeah, it's
not much has changed, to be fair.
Yeah, it's more or less the same now. It's just council estates, and you just at that age, obviously growing up, we didn't have a lot of money, so for us to we wake up in the morning, and this is when we're off school, we just go and play football. That's all we do till it gets dark and we have to come in, and then the next day, same, repeat. We go during the week. You go to school. As soon as you finish school, you quickly come home, get changed, out, go and play football. So that's all, and that was the way of us keeping out of trouble, and at the same time doing something that we enjoy. So at that age, I never thought, I want to be a professional footballer. I just thought I love playing football, and this keeps me out of trouble. So that's all I kind of really thought about. And it wasn't until a lot later on when I thought, you know what? Yeah, I want to try and make a career out of this.
So obviously, again, if for some people that don't know, in terms of like East London, there's a lot of temptations that can maybe steer you down the wrong path. Like how hard or how easy was it for you to just kind of remove those temptations?
For me, I found it quite easy, because I think it's just because of my mum, probably. My mum was quite strict in the way that she raised us. Like, she raised us on her own. So there was 4. I had an older brother, a younger sister, and a younger brother. And in terms of trying to steer us away from temptation of, a lot of people that I grew up with did go on, and I ended up being locked up in prison or worse. So that my mum kind of made sure that we stayed away from that, and me and myself as well. I was never one that really wanted to get involved in the gangs and the criminal activity. So I just concentrated on football. I tried to base myself around people that had the same kind of interests as me. And yeah, and that kind of worked out for me.
Okay. So, so going back to like your youth football, where did it all begin with you?
So as a kid, I started at a club called Jay's Boys, which is just a little Sunday team. And I was in the B team. So this is the team that I was saying. My friend said to me, look, just come over and play. So I went and played with him, and we was in the Echo League. I think we was in like the B division or C division. So it wasn't.
Echo League was a big league.
Echo League was the big league. That's what I'm saying. And we was in one of the low leagues.
Okay.
I went over and played with them. And then a little bit later, the A team was like, look, we want you to come and join us. So it meant leaving my best friend who had introduced me to football. It meant leaving his team and going and playing in the A team. But they were in the second league down. So I thought, yeah, you know what, I'll go. Went and played with them. Played all through school. And then I got picked up by Chelsea. So Chelsea was Chelsea was the first club that I really signed for properly. Like I'd gone and played with Norwich and Charlton for, like a few games. I think Norwich I was there for about 6 months, but I hadn't signed. I'd just go there every week, train, playing the games and stuff, but we hadn't actually signed contracts or anything. I got to about 10, 11, and then I got picked up by Chelsea. And then I signed scholarship forms with them. And I ended up being at Chelsea for 6 years. So
how was that feeling, though? How was that when you realised that you're going to be playing for a big club like Chelsea?
Yeah, so that was the biggest thing, is that, every now and again we'd have to get taken out of school to go down to, if we had games or if we had training and stuff. So you'd be able to wear your tracksuit, your Chelsea tracksuit into school, and then you'd leave early and stuff. And it was brilliant. It was brilliant to. Everyone always wanted to talk to you, and do you know what I mean? You're always the popular.
You're the man. You're the man in school.
Yeah. It was like that, because obviously my school team. So I went to Robert Clack School, and my school team we won every game from year 7 to leaving school. We won every game we ever played.
So you was moving like the Invincibles.
we had like. So there was me, a guy called Paul Carr, was at Chelsea. Then there was a couple lads that were at West Ham, a few lads that were at Millwall. So we had like players at professional clubs. We had about 7. So our school team was serious. Do you know what I mean? In our borough, it was the best team around. And then so going into school in your tracksuit and stuff, and then being able to leave early, the special privileges, and obviously you're at a club like Chelsea, which is a huge Premier League club.
For sure. So how important was being in that surrounding and actually having a foundation from there? Was there a certain coach, or was there someone that always just put their arms around your shoulder? Because I'm sure obviously not everything was good times. Was there anyone there in particular that would help you just to stay grounded as well?
The coaches at Chelsea were brilliant. Neil Bath for me he's the youth development officer now. He's like the head of the academy at Chelsea now. And for me, he was brilliant. His man management and just the way he dealt with players was unbelievable. But I'd say the biggest for me was Bertie Knight. So Leon Knight, who was at Chelsea with me for about 4 or 5 years. His dad was the manager of Simrab, the Echo League was the best, obviously the best league around. Simrab were the best team, and Bertie was the manager.
They had Joel Cole, right? They had Joel Cole and Ashley Cole and Rio, John Terry. So they've got
everyone came through at Simrab.
Yeah.
Bertie was the manager of my age group, so that was like Leon Knight, Jermaine Defoe, a guy called Ryan Kent, who was the most 2-foot player I'd ever seen.
I remember him. Where was he before?
Kenty.
Yeah, didn't he make it somewhere?
Kenty was at Simrab. Then I think he was at Chelsea with me as well. So he came to
Chelsea. Yeah.
And him and Leon Knight and Ryan Kent were 2 of the best players I've ever seen, along with Jermaine Defoe. But they were literally like in a world of their own. So obviously they represented England at multiple levels and stuff like that. But yeah, for me, Bertie was just from when I joined up at Chelsea with Leon and Kenty, Bertie would be the guy that would look out for me. So like I said before, like my family didn't come from a lot of money, so Bertie would come into training and he'd just be like, "Yo, Aaron, come over." So I'd go over to the car. He'd give me a new pair of boots, new pair of trainers, 3 sets of training kit. Like, he was just that guy that really kind of looked out for the players that were a little bit less privileged than he was. Do you know what I mean? Like, Leon would have everything. Leon would have the best boots, the best trainers. Even to this day, he's got the best trainers. I know.
Yeah.
But he was just that guy that really, really looked out for me and really made sure that I was I was looked after, and that's something that I've kind of taken on into my life, and yeah, he was a huge influence on me.
No, so sorry, I'm bouncing around a little bit here, but we'll get so. Like you just said, is that one of the reasons why you did get into coaching, was because of that sort of upbringing that you had and those sort of people that you had around you that, looked after you in a certain way? Is that one of the reasons why you got into coaching?
I'd say partly, yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, I always looked, once I got to a certain point in my career, I found that whether I was playing or not, I found myself as kind of taking a leadership role, and always trying to help the younger ones, as other people, throughout my career had done with me. So I think I just kind of, I gravitated to it naturally. It wasn't a day I've just turned around and said, right, what am I going to do now? Just, I'd always been that personality where if I see younger players who I think can do something, I want to do as much as I can to help them. And sometimes it would be to the detriment of me. It might be players that are playing in the same position as me. But listen, I just think that if you can help someone along the way, especially younger players, if you can help them develop and go on and be great players, then that's our responsibility, really. And yeah,
that's interesting.
like I say, there's a lot of people in the game that won't do that. There's a lot of people that just think about themselves and don't really want to help other people develop. But my upbringing never taught me that, so I've always been that type of person.
No, I can definitely relate to that, man. So I spoke to you briefly. I did say to you, you've got a healthy CV. At which point of your career did you think that you can start making a living out of football?
You know what? I think it was probably when I was at Grays. So when I left Chelsea at 16, I went to Leyton Orient. I signed a 2-year YTS and then 2 years pro. But I played in the first team when I was 16. So for 4 years on and off, I was in and out of the first team. I was always a sub. They never really started me. I think I only started about 3 games. But because I was so energetic and raw and would just work hard. So I was the player that for 10 minutes you just chuck on at the end of the game. If you needed to try and get a goal or create something, you chuck me on. If you're winning, you throw me on to just be a nuisance. So I suppose at that point I thought, yeah, I could, but that wasn't kind of the be all and end all. I wasn't really thinking too far ahead. Then I got released. I'd had a couple of bad injuries, and I got released. I went to Aldershot, who were in the conference at the time, and I never knew anything about them. They were just being promoted to the National League. But as far as I was concerned, I was dropping out of professional football and playing part-time football. Even though Aldershot were full-time at the time, I was dropping out of professional football and didn't really know whether or not I was going to be able to get back into professional football. As a player, I thought I had attributes that were good, but I wasn't the best out there. I wasn't a Jermaine Defoe or a Leon Knight at the time. So, it was a case of just going there, working hard and seeing what kind of developed from it. And I enjoyed my time at Aldershot. We got to the playoff final, and unfortunately lost on penalties, but I did score. So
come on, you got a few goals under your belt.
Yeah, I got a few.
Yeah.
But like I say, it was when I left Aldershot and went to Grays.
Yeah.
I went to Grays and I was playing with really good players like Michael Cartley, Dennis Ollie, Gary Hooper. I was playing with serious players. And
you probably, sorry to cut you off, bro, but you probably won't remember anyway. Well, you won't. But when you was at Grays, I was playing for the under 15s.
Oh, really?
Grays. Yeah, them times the Grays were in a conference prem.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember like your name and Leon. No, not Leon. Sorry, Michael. They were the
Kitely.
two names that, Michael Kitely and like the youth team coaches would be like, that's the two main players in the first team. I remember we used to come and watch the first team play a few times as well. Can't remember, it was a few games, but you scored. It was pretty much every game. When you check the first team, you'd be like, who scored? Probably Aaron. Who assisted? Probably Michael.
Yeah,
Like, it was always like that. But yeah, I remember.
yeah, that was one of the best times in my footballing career. You know, playing, and the thing is, we was all friends. We all got on really well away from football, but on the pitch, it was just so enjoyable. You know,
Mm,
and that's the time where I really thought, you know what, now I'm playing really well every week, scoring a lot of goals, creating a lot of interest, and I thought, you know what, now I think I've actually got a realistic chance of making a good career for myself. So yeah, that was the point I really thought I've got a chance here.
okay. So fast forward, you moved to Peterborough was it for 150k?
Yeah.
So at that time, this was I believe it was like 2006, I think, or 2007.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Now
think 2006.
at that time in the non-league, that's quite a bit of money. Did you feel any pressure to deliver?
You know what? I didn't feel pressure because of the transfer. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it was a lot of money in terms of moving from non-league to the league, but
Mm,
it did. I didn't really feel any of that. I felt pressure in the way that I was going from playing at Grays, where we're getting 1,000 people when we're doing well, to getting 5,000-6,000 at Peterborough, and in a bigger stadium with players that have played hundreds of games. So there was that kind of pressure, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the pressure that was put on me, and from when I first went there, I was lucky enough to be able to, I was scoring goals straight away, and I just settled in really well. We also, at the same time, we signed George Boyd not too long after. Then we signed Craig McCall-Smith, and there was a lot of young players from non-league who I'd known of from my time at Grays, and Peterborough was the first club really to really delve into the non-league sector and kind of plucking out the best young players. So putting us all together, we gelled straight away, and obviously we went on to be really successful.
mm, mm. No, for sure. Was there any, like, the way you prepared games? Was there any way that you'd have like a certain ritual before games or anything like that?
Well, myself and Craig McCall-Smith, we'd always go in early,
Okay.
and we'd do hot and cold baths. So we'd have one really hot, one ice cold, and we'd do like a minute or 2 minutes in one, then swap over, then keep swapping over for about 20 minutes.
Okay.
Now, whether or not that actually made a difference or not, scientifically, I don't know if that's proven, but I just felt that it just kind of woke your legs up and got the blood flow in your legs moving. The same way players wear skins
Mm-hmm.
or the socks and stuff. For us, that really got us going, and because both of us were players that were constantly running throughout the game, we just constantly on the move. So that was probably the main ritual that I had,
Mm-hmm.
especially at my time at Peterborough. As I moved on, I did it less and less, but I think that's probably because I didn't have the people around me that kind of thought the same
Okay.
as me. But for my time at Peterborough, yeah, myself and Craig McCall-Smith, we'd always do that.
Okay, interesting. So what about, and also about in training, because I hear a lot of players say that, there's certain players that don't really train as hard, but then games day, it's a different player. Was you something like that, or was you just training will be like a match day for you?
Yeah, so training for me, I trained hard every day. I train how I play. And again, I look at myself and I look at Craig McCall-Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Craig wasn't a great trainer, and
Okay.
if you watched him throughout the week, you'd be like, how does this guy play?
Mm.
Like he was terrible in training. He's one of the worst trainers I've trained with. But on a match day, it just came together. Whereas for me, I always felt like for myself, I had to train well all through the week. I had to train how I was going to play because that's how I knew that when it came to a Saturday, I'd be ready. I'd feel ready in myself. And yeah, I was never one to kind of coast through training.
Which is interesting though. But so now, do you take that into your coaching? Because as a coach, you always try and give good information to the players, and you always tell them to work hard in training. Like, how hard is it to balance that? Because you've seen players, like you're saying, that didn't train as hard, but then it comes games day, it's like it's just they switched it on. Is
Yeah,
that kind of hard?
I think it's something I'm still learning, if I'm honest, because I naturally, whenever I'm looking at a player, naturally I compare them to myself first of all, and everyone's different. Everyone's different, so I can't expect everyone to train at the same intensity that I used to train at. But I would always prefer my players to train as if it's a game, as if they're preparing for a game, because I just think there's certain situations that happen in training that you can only things that happen in a game you can't recreate other than in training. So, for example, a ball hitting, ricocheting off someone, and the striker reacting quickly and smashing it in the goal. Like, you can do as many shooting drills as you want, but that natural instinct to just react, I don't feel like you can recreate that unless it's a game kind of situation. And every time you don't react to it, it's an opportunity missed. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree with you, 100%. So we spoke briefly before as well, like, because you've been through pretty much all the levels in a football league in England. Like, how much has that helped you on your journey to becoming a coach?
I think it's been invaluable. I think that's been probably my biggest strength, if I'm honest. Is I know every level, having experienced the times where it's cold and windy at a non-league ground, or the best days where it's the sun's shining and you're at a White Hart Lane or somewhere like that. Those experiences. It's I think all of it put together. No matter what situation I seem to find myself in now, I can always relate back to personal experiences, good and bad, and kind of give advice as I see it. And on the player side, they know that I'm giving them advice that I've either taken myself or I've seen firsthand, and they can trust that what I'm saying is for their benefit.
No, I agree 100%. So in terms, so you made your Premier League debut. Like, what was that like? Talk to me. How was that feeling? Because obviously I've never experienced that. And that was a dream of mine. But just being a Premier League player, like, how did that feel?
It was hands down the best moment, footballing wise of my career. I made it at White Hart Lane, and a lot of my family are Tottenham fans as well.
Okay.
I didn't even know I was going to be playing. If I'm honest, we'd played them midweek in the cup at White Hart Lane, so I played in that, and I played well. And then I think we must have had either a couple of injuries or a couple of suspensions, so we was playing them again on the Saturday. Or we played in the cup on the Saturday, and then we was playing them on the Wednesday, I think it was, in the league. So then, Steve Bruce just said, look, you're involved. And then for me to be able to get on the pitch was, just that moment of when the ball goes up and you run out on the pitch. Even though I'd been on that same pitch only a few days earlier, the fact that it was in the Premier League was, when I came off the pitch, it really hit me that, you've played in the Premier League.
You've done it. Yeah, you've done it.
Yeah. And, it's one of them things that no one can ever take away from you. It's one of the proudest moments for me.
No, for sure. So I hear a lot of players that I've spoken to that have played at that level in terms of the Premier League and that have played in like League One and League Two, and they always say that when you go to the Prem, it's like you got more time on the ball. Is that correct? Or
Yeah, so I found that at the higher level, I think it's because players respect each other more, and I think to play at that level, you have to have a little bit extra. So the deeper you are in the pitch, you get a lot more time. But as you get closer to the goal, the game gets a lot quicker, and people get a lot closer to you, and you're coming up against people like Rio Ferdinand, who reads the game. He's 3 steps ahead of you before you've even thought about what run you're going to make. So you have to have that little bit extra. But yeah, I find in the deeper areas, you've got more time on it, even maybe in the middle area. But once you get into that final third, it's tight and it's
fast pace,
congested. And
yeah.
yeah.
Amazing, man. So who would you say was the hardest player that you played against?
Rio was the hardest I ever played against,
Yeah.
hands down. Yeah,
What was he just physical and
he was just one of them players that, like I say, he just seemed to be 2 steps ahead all the time. If you tried to get into a race with him, he'd already be there, or and Rio could run, so he was quick anyway. But his reading of the game was so good that no matter what it was you wanted to do, he was always going to be in the right position. And if he wasn't, then he had the pace to be able to recover from it. And also, I'd say Carl Walker.
Okay.
Carl Walker, because of his pace, he always seemed to be able to recover. And I played against Carl when he was obviously a lot younger, and he was good then, strong, quick. But his positioning, he'd get caught out of position a lot of the time. But he had a certain tenacity about him that he'd always be able to recover. And it's no surprise that he's gone on to be able to do what he has in the game.
Do you feel like he gets much credit, or do you think he's underrated a little bit?
I don't know really. I think for where he's come from and what he's achieved, you can't help but respect him. Obviously Carl's a good friend of mine, so I'm always going to sing his praises. But him and Carl Norton, boys from Sheffield, and what they've done in their careers and the longevity of their careers as well. Bearing in mind they're not actually that old, but
yeah, they're not.
It seems like they've been in the game for forever. And the way they've carried themselves on the pitch, they always play with a real desire to be winners. Do you know what I mean? And that's something that's really impressed me. Carl Norton obviously is at Swansea now, and again he's a good friend of mine. And the way he plays the game, he should be playing in the Premier League for me. In my opinion, he should be playing week in, week out in the Premier League. But he's a top professional, and those type of players that play the game the way it's meant to be played, they'll always stand out for me.
No, I agree with both of them. I highly rate them and what they've done as well in terms of Carl as well. What he's done is amazing, and you could see even his transformation going to Man City. It's just he's evolved as a player. But just for me personally, I feel like sometimes he doesn't really get the credit that he deserves, and he more so gets the criticism on the other side of his game rather than what he does offer. Because technically he's a very good player as well. In my opinion, anyway. So
100%. And I think to play in the Man City team, you have to be a good footballer.
Yeah, of course that as well.
Because if you can't play in that team, then you can't play, and you will stand out a mile. And he goes in there and he plays comfortably. He never looks out of place. So I think that says everything about him.
No, for sure. So when you made the transition over from playing to coaching, obviously it's quite apparent that, you can see that there's not a lot of black and ethnic minority cultures in the game. Like, did that ever come across to you, like, or did you think about that it might be a long journey for someone that's come from, where you've come from?
You know what? This was kind of something that I never really thought too much about it. Making a transition initially, so I was at Ebbsfleet in the conference. I'd played there for a couple of years, and the manager, Daryl McMahon, said to me, "Look, I'd like you to come on board as a coach." And at first, I was on board as a player coach, but as time went on, I just felt that to be able to really coach, you can't be a player. You can't do both. You can't concentrate on yourself and prepare how you have to prepare for a game on a Saturday, and through the week try and help other people prepare. So the decision to retire and concentrate solely on coaching was quite an easy decision. But I never really thought too much about the fact that I was a black coach, and there isn't many. A lot of people would bring it to my attention and say to me, it's going to be tough and this and that. But I've always just looked at it as, listen, if I'm good enough, then hopefully I'll get the opportunities. And touch wood, up to this point, I've not come across that kind of stereotype yet. I've not come across a situation where I should have got a role or I should get a job because I'm better, and I haven't because I'm black. Don't get me wrong, I'm under no illusions that late as my career goes on in coaching, that could well be the case. I'm under no illusions, but at this moment in time, I was brought in by Ebbsfleet as a coach. When I left Ebbsfleet, I had a period of about 4 months where I wasn't working, and I thought to myself, what am I going to do now? I've only been a coach for a few months, and now I've not done all my badges, and I'm thinking I don't really know what I'm going to do. But I just used that time, so I went into Doncaster for a week, and just kind of shadowed there. I went into Tottenham, and then I went back into Chelsea. I spoke to Neil Bath, and he was like, "Listen, come down. I'd love to have you down." And went down there, was shadowing with the 16s, the 18s, the 23s, and it was brilliant. And I just thought to myself, I'm going to make sure that I use this time that I'm not in football to just learn as much as I can. And then hopefully when I go back into football, wherever that opportunity may be, I'm better for it. And then by luck, it was Darren Ferguson went back to Peterborough. I'd just spoken to Darren. And at first it was just, I was literally just going down to have a coffee with him. Just have a coffee and have a chat. And then I went down there, we got talking, we kind of spoke about what I'm doing now, and he was like, "Look, why don't you come down and for a few weeks or a few months and see how it goes?" And now I'm still here.
No, that's interesting. So you done your rounds, you done your shadowing, which is, for me anyway, I think is important as a coach. Do you feel like you've got a philosophy yet as a coach, or is it still developing?
I think it's always developing. I think I'm a coach that I like to play football on the floor. I like a lot of movement, a lot of rotation, and I like all my players to be able to run. I like them all to be able to work hard, and so there's certain non-negotiables that I've got. But as I'm watching my own teams that I'm involved in, I know that depending on what the level is, depending on what your funding available is, you have to kind of make sure that you accommodate that, and it's always changing and evolving, but there's a certain way that I'd like to play football, and that I like to see football played. And luckily for me, I'm at a club where they match everything that I want. In a team, we play at Peterborough. We play good football. We play a lot of. It's quite expensive at times, but there's it's everyone knows their roles. Even though there's a lot of movement and rotation in it, there's a formula to it. There's a serious blueprint behind it, and it's just not chaos. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, interesting. And is there anyone that, do you feel like you're getting enough support to bet yourself as a coach? Is there anyone helping you at this time?
Well, for Darren Ferguson, for me, is unbelievable. Okay. He was my manager at Peterborough when I was there. I had back-to-back promotions under him, and now coming back to the club as first team coach and having him constantly pushing me he's brilliant. I wasn't sure how it was going to be at first, because obviously I've always had a good relationship with him, but I wasn't sure how it was going to be being on the management side with him.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a very demanding manager in that he demands a lot from his players, he demands a lot from his staff, and he's always pushing you to be better and to do more and to do more. But it's all done in the exact way that it should be done. He doesn't shout and scream. He's one of the most laid back people you'll come across, but he demands a certain level of professionalism and a certain desire, and he really gets it out of you. And for me, he's been huge for me.
It sounds like you're in a good environment, and just listening to you as well, it just sounds that you're just in a good environment for you to progress and take it to the next level. Is there so just to wrap things up, is there any advice that you would give to young players that have gone through what you've gone through?
At every level, or?
Yeah, just in terms of every level, like, because I'm sure there have been times where, things wasn't going right for you, or, is there any advice you would give to young players in terms of when things aren't going right for them?
Yeah, well, I'd just say, listen, always make sure that you work as hard as you can, as long as you can. My saying was always that I don't know what level I'm going to get to play at, and I don't know how long I'll play at that level. But I know once my career's done, wherever I got to, if I had only ever got to League 2, then at the end of my career, I can look back and say, do you know what? That for my ability and my opportunity, that's the best that I could get to. I didn't miss out on an opportunity because my attitude wasn't right, or I didn't put in enough work to be able to get there. And you never know when an opportunity is going to come. So you have to make sure that you constantly prepare. And then when that opportunity does come, you're best placed to be able to try and take it. I think the game is all about opportunities, but the best way to be able to take opportunities is to make sure that you're prepared.
That's powerful, man. I agree with you as well, man. Listen, Aaron, I appreciate your time. Thank you for just sharing your journey, your advice, and just everything. I really appreciate it, man. And I hope all the best for you in terms of your career, your coaching career, and I hope to see you in the Premier League one day, coaching down touchline.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, man. Thank you for everyone that's listening as well. No, go on.
No, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me on this. It's been brilliant.
Anytime, mate. Anytime. But yeah, thank you for everyone that's been listening as well. And if anyone wants to get in contact with Aaron, where can they find you?
I'm on Twitter, so I'm at A9Mac.
Okay.
On Twitter.
Perfect.